One man believed he could say whatever he wanted without consequences. He challenged court orders, repeated explosive allegations against one of South Africa's most controversial political figures, and continued speaking even after judges told him to stop. But now, the tables have turned dramatically. A high court judge has signed a warrant for his arrest. 10 days behind bars. A public apology ordered by the court. And a legal battle that has suddenly become one of the most talked about political stories in South Africa. Ngizwe Mchunu, known for his outspoken views and confrontational style, is now facing one of the most serious legal consequences of his public career. But what exactly happened? Why did a high court judge decide that a warrant of arrest was necessary? And what does this case reveal about freedom of speech, political accountability, and the power of the courts in South Africa? Before we get into the details, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest developments on the biggest stories making headlines. This story matters because it goes far beyond a personal dispute between two public figures. At the center of the controversy are Ngizwe Mchunu and economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema. Both are highly recognizable names in South African politics and public discourse. Both have large followings. And both have often found themselves at the center of controversy. But this time, the dispute left the world of social media and entered the courtroom. And when that happened, the stakes changed completely. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning. The conflict stems from allegations that Nchunu made about Julius Malema. According to court documents, Nchunu allegedly published statements claiming that Malema had received large sums of money from Nigerian sources and was involved in other forms of serious misconduct. These allegations were strongly denied. Malema argued that the claims were false, defamatory, and damaging to his reputation. The matter eventually reached the Gauteng Division of the High Court in Pretoria, where legal proceedings began to determine how the situation should be handled. As the case progressed, the court issued directives concerning the publication and repetition of the allegations. The expectation was clear. The statements that had been ruled defamatory were not to be repeated. But according to the court, that is exactly what happened. And this is where the situation started becoming much more serious. The issue was no longer simply about whether certain statements were true or false. The issue became whether a court order had been deliberately ignored. That transformed the dispute from a defamation matter into something far more dangerous: contempt of court. For any legal system to function, court orders must carry authority. If individuals can openly ignore judicial directives without consequences, the entire system begins to lose credibility. That principle became central to what happened next. According to the ruling, the court concluded that Nchunu intentionally republished prohibited statements despite previous court orders directing otherwise. The judge found that this conduct constituted contempt of court. And once that finding was made, the consequences followed swiftly. An arrest warrant was issued. The order authorized the South African Police Service to arrest and detain Nchunu for a period of 10 days. For many observers, this was a shocking development. Court orders resulting in arrest warrants are not everyday occurrences, especially when the dispute involves public statements made on social media and political allegations. But here's where things get disturbing. The court did not simply issue a warrant and leave it at that. Instead, the judge created a pathway for Nchunu to avoid detention. The warrant would be suspended under specific conditions. Those conditions were highly detailed. The court required Nchunu to publish an unreserved apology directed to the court. That apology had to appear on the social media platforms where he had been active during the previous 6 months. The apology also had to be uploaded to the court's caseline system. In addition, it had to be distributed to media organizations where the disputed allegations had previously appeared. The court further required that he refrain from repeating the prohibited statements during a 6-month suspension period. In simple terms, the message from the court was clear. But what happened next raised serious questions. Just days before the latest ruling, Nchunu had already issued a public apology and retraction. On the 4th of June 2026, he withdrew several claims that he had previously made about Julius Malema. According to reports, this retraction came after legal advice. To many people watching from the outside, that might have appeared to settle the matter. If an apology had already been issued, why was a warrant still necessary? The answer appears to lie in the court's assessment that the apology did not satisfy the precise requirements of earlier judicial orders. The court referenced previous rulings issued on the 12th and 19th of May 2026. According to the judgment, compliance was not merely about apologizing. It was about following the exact terms that had been established by the court. That distinction may seem technical, but in legal proceedings it can be extremely important. Courts often emphasize that partial compliance is not the same as full compliance. And in this case, the judge appears to have concluded that the requirements had not been fully met. This is the part few people are talking about. The broader significance of this case may have less to do with Julius Malema and more to do with the authority of South African courts. The judgment sends a message that court orders are not optional. Whether someone is a politician, activist, influencer, celebrity, or ordinary citizen, judicial directives must be respected. Supporters of the ruling argue that the court had little choice. From their perspective, allowing repeated violations of court orders would undermine the rule of law. Critics, however, may see the situation differently. Some believe that aggressive legal action against controversial speech raises concerns about the balance between freedom of expression and judicial authority. That debate is likely to continue long after this particular case is resolved. And it raises another important question. Where exactly should the line be drawn between free speech and defamatory speech? South Africa's constitution protects freedom of expression, but that right is not unlimited. Defamation laws exist to protect individuals from false statements that damage their reputations. Courts are often tasked with balancing these competing principles. The challenge becomes even more complicated in the age of social media. Platforms like TikTok, Facebook, X, and YouTube have dramatically increased the speed at which information spreads. A statement can reach hundreds of thousands of people within hours. Even if that statement is later retracted, the damage may already have been done. That reality has transformed the way courts approach online conduct. And it may explain why this case has attracted so much attention. But here's where the story becomes even more significant politically. Julius Malema remains one of the most influential and polarizing figures in South African politics. Any legal dispute involving him is almost guaranteed to generate national debate. His supporters view the judgment as evidence that false allegations should have consequences. Others question whether high-profile political figures possess greater resources to pursue legal action than ordinary citizens. Regardless of where people stand politically, the case has once again placed Malema at the center of a national conversation. And it has also placed Ngizwe Mchunu under an intense spotlight. For years, Nchunu has cultivated an image as someone willing to challenge powerful individuals and institutions. His supporters often praise him for speaking his mind without fear. His critics accuse him of spreading unverified claims and fueling controversy. Now, those competing perceptions are colliding inside a courtroom. The public reaction has been intense. Across social media, opinions have been sharply divided. Some users celebrated the ruling, arguing that accountability had finally arrived. Others accused the legal system of targeting outspoken voices. Many expressed surprise at the severity of the consequences. The possibility of a 10-day detention captured widespread attention and quickly became a major topic of discussion online. Media organizations have also closely followed the developments. Legal analysts have focused on the contempt of court aspect of the ruling. Political commentators have examined the implications for public discourse. Civil society groups continue debating what the case means for free speech in a constitutional democracy. As these discussions unfold, one fact remains clear. The case has become much bigger than a disagreement between two individuals. It has evolved into a broader conversation about law, politics, media, and accountability. And that brings us to what happens next. The immediate question is whether Mchunu will satisfy all of the court's conditions. If he fully complies with the requirements outlined in the order, the warrant can remain suspended. If he fails to do so, the risk of arrest remains. The court has already established the framework. What happens from here depends largely on compliance. At the same time, legal observers will be watching closely for any further developments. Will additional applications be filed? Will there be appeals? Will new statements emerge that affect the proceedings? Those questions remain unanswered. What is certain is that every move will now be examined under a legal microscope. And perhaps that is the most important lesson from this entire saga. This portion is safely below the 6,650 character limit.